Demanding answers after a second asylum seeker in 3 months dies.
We have to ask ourselves as Canadians whether this is who we want to be.
The mother of 4 came to Canada last Thursday and died after waiting hours for a shelter space.
Police, they're okay, because if they're here, the bad guys, they're not gonna come around.
Plus, more community reaction as police search for new evidence in the Toronto bus stop shootings. Why investigators are now combing green space in Hamilton for clues.
Now, we've been looking forward to this for a long time, and now we're scrambling.
Passengers stranded. Lynx Air hit turbulence and obtains creditor protection. The low-cost airline is grounding operations as of Monday. What customers need to know. Good evening, I'm Natalie Collada. We begin tonight in Mississauga, where community leaders are demanding answers after an asylum seeker who died last weekend. She was spending the night at a shelter run by the region. Now, we first told you about her death last night, but we are now learning more details about the woman who died. And we are getting a clear picture of the overcrowding, not just at the shelter, but at shelters right across Peel region. Greg Ross has the latest.
No one leaves their country to come seeking refuge to die.
A number of community organizations that advocate for African immigrants came together today outside the shelter where 46-year-old Delphina Njiji came for help last weekend.
We know that our sister showed up and she had to wait outside for a long time in the cold.
We're told that Njiji arrived in Canada on February 15th from Kenya seeking asylum. She arrived at this shelter on Dundas Street East in Mississauga just 2 days later. The shelter has been operating at overcapacity for months and didn't have a bed to offer Njiji.
When she first arrived at the shelter, we were out of space, but luckily we were able to accommodate her in the lobby.
Mississauga City Councillor Deepika Damerla says shelter workers did what they could.
The next day she had a medical emergency. The shelter provided her with emergency care, the best timely care, and then she was moved to a hospital and she died. And the hospitals made it clear that the death is not suspicious.
This man lives at the shelter. He didn't want to show his face on camera because he fears repercussions. He says he was also impacted by the overcrowding here when he first arrived last summer.
At one point we weren't even allowed to use the bathroom inside.
He spent several months living in a tent outside the shelter waiting for space to open up, something many asylum seekers are also forced to do. He wonders why somebody has to die before people take notice.
Why is it after the fact that they're here talking about her?
We have to ask ourselves as Canadians whether this is who we want to be.
Njiji is the second asylum seeker to die here in the last 3 months. A man in his 40s died in November while living in one of these tents. His death was deemed not suspicious. These community leaders say the problem can't be fixed unless all levels of government step up to do more.
We are asking the federal government, we're asking the provincial government, we're asking the municipalities across the country, what are you going to do?
These advocates tell us that Njiji has 4 children back in Kenya. They say they're trying to raise money to send her body back there so her family can bury her. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, turning now to a significant update on the police investigation into 2 bus stop shootings that happened a week ago at the same Toronto intersection, Jane and Driftwood. The focus of the police search is now shifting west to Stony Creek, where police spent much of the day searching a ravine. It's unclear what they were looking for, but we do know that a black Acura RDX, which police say may have been involved in the fatal shooting, was found abandoned in Hamilton. Dale Manukduk has more.
Toronto police canvassed the ravine on foot and by drone. They would not say what they were looking for. They would also not confirm if a gun used in 2 shootings last weekend was found. Last Friday, a 16-year-old boy was shot in the face at a bus stop. He was taken to hospital with critical injuries, but is now in stable condition. The next afternoon, at the same intersection of Jane Street and Driftwood Avenue, 39-year-old Adu Boache of Ghana was gunned down. No arrests have been made, and police are still on the hunt for this suspect. While multiple units canvassed through Hamilton, police are still very present in the Jane and Driftwood area.
And they're here. So we feel safer with them in the community.
So I'm so glad because the incident that happened not quite too long. A lot of us were scared, but for seeing police, I think is encourageable.
But not everyone feels great about the increased presence. Local organization Jane Finch Action Against Poverty says there's an issue with police using the shootings to justify more cops in the area. In a news release, JFAAP says we've already had a huge police presence. Our experience has shown that the solution to shootings is not to add more cops on our streets. They've done this for decades in Jane Finch, and it has not worked and will never work. Police say that the command post here at Driftwood Community Center is meant to demonstrate their presence after last week's shootings, but it's not the only step that police are taking to provide a sense of safety or make connections. In a statement to CBC Toronto, the force says that officers in the area will continue to prioritize relationship building and making connections with residents. The statement also pointed to gun violence in the community, which has improved over the years, something police mentioned on Tuesday.
Last year, we had a 10-year low based on our efforts to specifically be in this community. Officers on foot connecting with the community.
Meanwhile, an online fundraiser has surpassed $20,000 looking to provide support to the family of Adu Boache back in Ghana.
It doesn't matter how much we raise, it's not going to bring him back. But at least this is a token of support that can go a long way to support these surviving families.
The president of the Ghanaian Canadian Association of Ontario says a friend of Adu Boache, who's based in Toronto, has been in touch with the family back in Ghana and says they're absolutely devastated. A community vigil is scheduled for tomorrow in Toronto. That goes at 1 p.m. where we expect to hear from people who knew him. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Hamilton.
Well, low-cost airline Lynx Air has hit some turbulence. The Calgary-based airline announced it's shutting down, grounding operations starting on Monday. But as Tyler Cheese explains, a handful of flights have already been canceled, leaving passengers at Pearson Airport scrambling.
No, I mean, I don't know if it's bad luck or what, but not the best experience to start a vacation.
We're stuck. Now we have to rebook. I don't know when we're going to get to Florida.
You know, we've been looking forward to this for a long time, and now we're scrambling.
Some Lynx Air customers were upset to hear their flights had been canceled at the last minute today. In one case, travelers heading to Fort Myers, Florida were allowed to board their plane only to learn of the cancellation just before takeoff.
We sat on the tarmac for 2.5 hours, and then they made us get off the plane. They lied to us on the plane. They told us that there would be someone to help us when we got off. There was no one.
The cancellations followed the announcement of the airline's shutdown. That's despite Lynx saying it would remain operational over the weekend. Meanwhile, industry insiders say they weren't surprised to hear the news.
Quite a few people were expecting the shoe to drop at some point. They didn't know which shoe would drop, and obviously tonight we're finding out it's Lynx.
This also isn't the first time in recent months that a low-cost airline has been forced to cease operations.
We used to have Swoop. Swoop's gone.
Yeah,
the affordable airlines are crashing.
In a statement posted online, Lynx cites multiple reasons for the shutdown, including rising inflation, fuel costs, and competitive tension in the Canadian market. Experts say it's that competitive environment that makes it difficult for low-cost airlines to succeed in Canada. That's due to policies that don't allow true low-cost fares, like the £5 flights between London and Edinburgh offered in the UK, for example.
All they're doing is they're fighting for the exact same travel dollar that existing travelers are already spending on the large carriers, and those large carriers are going to respond competitively.
In response to the news, Air Canada says it will step in to help Lynx customers that have been affected. The company says it will add over 6,000 seats on some routes that were operated by Lynx, as well as capping certain fares for select dates. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, let's take a look at our city right now. -7 degrees, feeling closer to -15 with that wind chill. Let's bring in our Victor Paolo with your weather forecast. Victor, talk about weather whiplash. Those temperatures, they are dropping.
That's right. Tonight is going to be cold. It's already cold if you're someone who's already stepped outside and gone back in before the start of this late show because of that Arctic air mass, which is working its way down to southeastern Ontario. Now, that coupled with the clear skies are a definite recipe for this cold temperatures that we do have right now. Now, Sunday, we're expecting some snow, but not that much. But your average high for this time of year, -0.1 is your average high and -8.8 is your average low. And taking a look at rainfall totals that we're going to be expecting, well, the good news is no rain this weekend. What is happening this weekend is it is going to be quite cold because we're expecting that Arctic air mass to pull its way down to where we are. Now, when it comes to your Saturday morning, you do see Saturday's a low of -9, but I would just like to note when this starts the day on your Saturday, it's going to be feeling like -23. So you want to make sure you're bundled up and you're staying warm, and most importantly, you're staying tuned to us for the rest of your forecast. Over to you.
Thanks, Victor. Well, some lawyers are calling comments made by Premier Doug Ford harmful and irresponsible. It comes after the Premier defended appointing 2 of his former staffers to the committee that selects provincial judges, a committee that's supposed to be nonpartisan. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redicombe has the story.
Premier Doug Ford was asked if he's okay with 2 people who used to work in his office being appointed to a committee that helps select judges.
100% I am. We got elected to get like-minded people in appointments.
Attorney General Doug Downey makes these appointments. The Toronto Star first reported that Ford's former deputy chief of staff chairs the Judicial Appointments Advisory Committee. Another former staffer to the Premier is a member.
I'm not going to appoint some NDP or some Liberal.
He continued, criticizing judges and justices of the peace for too quickly letting people out on bail.
Every single appointment I can to find tough judges, tough JPs, to keep guys in jail, I'm going to do it. So that's part of democracy.
There's been strong reaction from the legal community.
Is perhaps one of the most dangerous, misguided, and scary things that I've ever heard someone in a position of leadership say.
This Ottawa criminal lawyer says Ontario's justice system is supposed to be non-political.
That is deeply, deeply troubling when you have politicians playing politics with the criminal justice system. If you look south of the border, you can tell what a court's going to do based on who appointed the judge. They wear their politics on their sleeve. Doug Ford is setting up the conditions for that erosion of trust here.
The Federation of Law Associations in the province put out a release saying Ford's comments reflect a juvenile understanding of the role of an independent judiciary and that the justice system is not a playground for politicians to bully. Opposition parties are also upset about this. The Liberal Party has written to the Attorney General asking him to revoke the 2 appointments. The Green Party wants the whole system of appointments changed to ensure that they're based on merit. Lorenda Redicombe, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, meantime, a huge development on the controversial Bill 124. It has now officially been repealed. The bill would have capped wage growth for hundreds of thousands of public sector workers, including nurses and teachers, at 1% a year. But it was twice declared unconstitutional. The province's top court saying it violated collective bargaining rights. The government announced today in a short news release that it has repealed Bill 124 in its entirety, though through a government order recommended by Cabinet and signed by the Lieutenant Governor. Well, in Durham Region, advanced polls opened today for the federal by-election. It's being held to replace the vacant seat previously held by former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole. Clara Pasica spoke to voters about what's top of mind.
Here at this Durham polling station, some voters were eager to get their ballots in early. Several people saying this location was busier than usual this morning.
I always vote. If I don't vote, I cannot complain.
Voters across the riding have a wide range of issues in mind.
I'm thinking about, for instance, our taxes and housing, and I'm thinking about community. I'm thinking about what happens with refugees.
Canada is sort of at a tipping point of being a really great country or sliding slightly downhill. So I think it's really important everybody come out and vote.
It really upsets me, the trying to take away transgender rights, people's equality, LGBTQ rights, all of those things. I think that everybody has the right to just be themselves, and that nobody politically should be trying to take that away.
The Durham seat was previously held by former federal Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, and Conservatives have held the riding for the past 2 decades. Their candidate Jamil Jivani hopes to keep it that way, but competitors are doing all they can to prevent that.
They're taking advantage of these advance polls, which is always a fantastic thing to hear. And I think it really means that people are ready for a change. They've had enough of that revolving door governments of Liberal and Conservative. They want something different.
Voters, supporters in the area, MPs and ministers, and the Prime Minister himself here, all behind this campaign because they all feel and know that, on March 4th, we are going to turn Durham red for the first time in 20 years.
We requested to speak with both Green candidate Kevin McKenzie and the Conservatives candidate Giovanni, but neither agreed to an interview. If Durham voters haven't made it out to the polls yet, there's still time. Advance polls are open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. today through Monday, or you can vote on Election Day, March 4th. Clara Pasica.
Welcome back. Well, tomorrow, the world will mark a bleak milestone. On February 24th, 2022, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began, sending displaced Ukrainians all over the world in search of safety. Lane Harrison spent the day with some of them in the GTA.
Inside the Setobiko church, Ukrainian children sing their national anthem and pray for their home country. Saturday will mark 2 years since the Russian invasion began. For many, the prayer for victory is especially important because their fathers are on the front lines. Yerveni Honcharov's dad is a military doctor.
I feel good because my dad is a kind of hero, and I'm proud of him. And but I want he's here.
The church was filled with students from St. Demetrius Catholic School. For many Ukrainian children in the city, it's been a safe haven. Since the war began in February 2022, the student population has nearly doubled in size.
Our children, our students, our community really needs a sense of healing, a sense of hope, and unity, and to show that we're with them through all of this.
Це дуже круто, бо ти так швидше вивчиш мову.
She says it's wonderful because children speak Ukrainian and English, so she's feeling at home having the Ukrainian, but she's learning English from the English speaking.
Here's Ukrainian, and I feel comfortable here.
Teacher Matthew Delinda says teaching students from a war-torn country comes with special considerations.
Giving them that normalcy, giving that safe space as soon as they come here, I think was the most challenging task, because there was lots of triggers that you just would not know if it was even the bell ringing.
Inside the church, speakers didn't shy away from the reality of the invasion, mentioning Russia's missile strikes on civilian infrastructure like hospitals and theaters.
And pray to the Mother of God that she may turn away those drones and those missiles that are falling on Ukraine.
Saturday, students from the school will join thousands of others in downtown Toronto, where a solidarity event is being held at Nathan Phillips Square. Lane Harrison, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, Mayor Olivia Chow and Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey will bring a motion to Toronto City Council to donate 5 vehicles and 3 generators to Ukraine's capital. In a statement, Chow said Toronto is proud to support the people of Ukraine during these very difficult times. Kyiv is one of Toronto's friendship cities, an agreement that was established back in 1991. This is the 3rd year our city has sent vehicles and supplies to Ukraine. Toronto has already donated 7 vehicles. The motion will be tabled next month. And here is another look at Toronto tonight. Again, those temperatures dropping quickly. Let's check back in with Victor Paolo for our long-range forecast. Victor, we are seeing quite the dip in the temperatures.
Well, looking at tonight, it's going to be a cold one. Right about the time the show's over tonight, it's going to be closer to around -12, -13. But by the time we're going to be around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, -16, feeling like -24. It's definitely going to be cold. It is happening for sure. If you look behind me, you see the clear skies. No real cloud cover to insulate any of that heat. But when it comes to tomorrow morning, not any better, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be -14, feeling like -23. But we're expecting the low for later on in the day for your Saturday to be around -9. But don't be fooled by that -9 if you look at your weather apps, because when you start your day, it's going to be -23 is what it's going to feel like. Now, here's what it looks like from a bird's eye view over what's happening here in southeastern Ontario. And you can see a lot of that cloud cover is getting itself far away from where we are. That is that high pressure system that's working its way in towards where we're located. And that high pressure system, as you do see, gets rid of all of these clouds, as you can see right about the time the late show's done. It's going to be some clear skies. If you love to stargaze, be a great time to look up. But another thing about the clear skies that makes it quite cold, as there's no cloud cover to insulate any of that heat. And on top of that, the good news is when it is during the daytime, you get to really see and feel that sun because there's no clouds blocking any of it. Now, here's what it's going to be looking like when we're taking a peek at our 3- and 7-day forecast. Our 3-day forecast shows us that Saturday morning is going to feel like minus 23, even though it is a low of 9. Now, when it comes to your Sunday, we're expecting some snow to pass through the region, but not a lot, and it's going to be closer to after supper. Now, your Monday is going to be a day where above seasonal temperatures are going to return to the GTA. And taking a look at your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, well, we can see Tuesday and Wednesday, the return of the precipitation is going to be a wet one, but Tuesday is going to be a high of 9, a low of 7. And taking a look at Wednesday, well, one thing we can note is going to be a low of 5, and we can see the temperatures slowly start to drop as we're expecting a colder end to your next week. But until then, Toronto, have yourselves a lovely night and stay warm. And over to you.
Thanks, Victor. Well, in Mississauga tonight, an event celebrating the accomplishments of the city's Black community.
Stories and the recognition of our contribution has not really been told. So that's something new that's being introduced into Canadian history. And not everyone that actually migrates here necessarily stays. So we want people to stay, right, by feeling that sense of belonging.
It was the second version of the award ceremony celebrating Black excellence, recognizing nominees in a number of distinct categories: arts and culture, business, community service, education, and sport. While across town, another event showcasing Black works of art.
A lot of the times artists don't have the opportunity like this, or they have to do paid opportunities, but with the love and the support of our sponsors, we've been able to do this as a free event where we can actually have the opportunity of Black artists to take over Black spaces.
The gallery is called Illuminate and Celebrate, a Black art and culture exhibition running on Queen Street near Kensington Market. The event is free and shows the work of Black artists working in different mediums. It also runs tomorrow during the day. We will be right back. Well, finally tonight, here's a quirky little story for you out of China. A giant panda cub is rocking more than just his cuteness at a conservation facility. Look at this muscle. The cub was born last year at the research center in southwest China. The facility is known for protecting and breeding giant pandas, red pandas, and other endangered animals. And that is our show for you tonight. I'm Natalie Collada. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, for news anytime, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. Good night.